You're live, Chairman.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Performance, Governance and Audit Committee on Thursday the 15th of June 2023. My name is Councillor Bell and I am the chairperson of this committee. There are just a few housekeeping issues to run through before we start. Members, we're streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak and I will invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask members to avoid approaching the top table, please, as this could create interference with the cameras and live stream. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn your microphone on and turn it off when finished. Please reference page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers, and please keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Thank you. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. I believe we have no apologies, Committee Clerk, is that correct?
No, Chairman, we have apologies from Councillors Bassinger and Councillor Pratt. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of March 2023, found on pages 5 to 10, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Yes? I was going to say, who was there? So is that a second, Councillor Stilts? Thank you. Councillor Stilts says second. Has any member who was there got any matters of accuracy that they wish to raise on those minutes? No? May we agree then by assent? Please, agreed. Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 4, matters arising. It is recommended that the matters arising from the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of March, found on pages 11 to 12, are noted. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Someone who is at the meeting? Councillor Stamp?
Do I call you Madam Chair? Chair, what do I address you as? Because everybody likes it differently.
What you like, Councillor
No,
Stamp.
seriously.
I have no objection. Chair is brief and
just Chair, not Madam Chair.
Up to you. I really don't mind.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would like to recommend or ask that you or whoever could read the accompanying for minutes arising. The clerk is excellent, who chairs this committee. And on the 5th of June, it was sent out, all the matters arising of the things that we'd done for that month or 2 months. And I think it may be helpful to all, I'm looking at the new members, but your officers, all the new members, if it could be read out so they've actually given a little bit of a head start of what has been going on, because it's very difficult for new members to know exactly what this committee has been doing for all the years it's been going since you was chair and I was chair. Is that okay? Can that be read out?
Have you read the...
Have they got it?
It's in the pack. Have you read those?
What, the accompanying notes, Chairman? Not.
I've got pages 11 to.
That.
Where are the accompanying notes?
The follow-up, Madam Chair.
Can you give me a page number, Councillor Stanley?
No, it's not on there. It's not on there.
Is that the email that we were sent that you responded to asking Mr.
No.
No. I don't have those then, so
okay, well,
if you do, Councillor Stamp, would you be able to read those out? Possibly?
Well, to be fair, I've actually forgot my pack, so I'm a bit on the hoof. Somebody's very helped me out. I can read some of it if members want. I can give it to you. You can read it if you want, love. Do you want to read it?
It's up to you. You have it. If you don't mind,
So, if you want to read it, I think that's only fair. There you go. I think it is important that, you know... No, we can make it bigger. There you go. See the members of the matters arising for PG&A, the work review, and it's the one in, it's the blue.
One in blue. Okay, thank you very much. Members, will you stop me when I need to finish?
Yeah, just when it gets to the bottom of the blue.
Following the transformation in 2019, the Service Delivery Directorate did not have the experience or capacity within environmental protection to make sufficient progress with these flood projects. For the past 4 months, a consultant has been focusing on the flood alleviation work to move this forward on a part-time basis. Once phase 1 of the reorganisation within service delivery has been completed, this activity will fall to the newly created Head of Service for Environmental Health, Waste and Climate Action. Modern District Council is not the lead flood agency. Essex County Council and the Environment Agency are the lead agencies in dealing with flooding and flood response, with Malden being a key strategic supporting partner.
Yeah.
That's information around penalty clause.
Yeah.
Do I need to read that
Yeah,
out?
because Madam Chair, it relates to what you've just said.
It's not restricted, okay. That information around penalty clauses in respect of contracts will be circulated to members outside of the meeting. The Council has liability and indemnity clauses, and in some cases it has capped damages. It cannot add a penalty clause. Any action would be as a result of breach of contract. In terms of adding a specific amount of liquidated damages, the Council can add this on a sliding scale depending on the value of the contract. However, it makes the standard terms and conditions more complex. Any damages must be reasonable to be enforceable, so adding liquidated damages of 1 million for a contract worth 5,000 would not be enforceable. In terms of works contracts, it would be industry standard contracts such as JCT, contracts, etc., so the Council would use the clauses suitable to the specific contracts. That the recommendation coming forward in the Community Safety Audit Report was around low attendance at the Responsible Authority Group, the RAG. This has been accepted as an issue, and the Public Protection Manager advised that the audit report and recommendation would be considered at the next RAG meeting, and feedback on the outcomes of the discussion would be circulated outside of the meeting. The Malden RAG met on 13th of the 4th 2023 and approved the revised terms of reference. Chief Inspector Paul Ballard has been appointed Chair for 2023-24, and the Public Protection Manager will act as Vice Chair for 2023-24. All strategic partners attended the meeting, including the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner panel representative and Malden Community Voluntary Service. The strategic priorities have been agreed for 2023-24 and the website updated to reflect this. That risk 4, failure to influence community safety partnerships to address the key areas of public concern, including rural crime and the negative impact of crime, be audited again in 2 years' time as the situation continuously fluctuates. A community safety audit was carried out earlier this year and reported to March PG&A. It resulted in a substantial assurance opinion, which is why it hasn't been included in the strategic plan. Internal audits will reassess for the next update to the plan, though to ensure that the issue of the situation constantly changes is addressed. If risks increase in this area, internal audit will include it in the 2024 to 2027 strategic plan. Is that it?
I think so.
Yep, it's... Yes, that is it, I think. Yes, thank you. Did it make sense? I do apologise for the fact I've spetted all over your mobile phone. It's a bit warm tonight. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so hopefully that has helped people get up to speed who weren't here previously. Okay, so I am now on Item 5, disclosure of interest, to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members, any disclosable interests? No. May I remind you that should any come to light during the meeting, you should let me know at the time. Thank you. Item 6, public participation, and I can confirm that no public participation has been received. So, members of the public listening in at home, we move to item number 7, internal audit report. And this is found on pages 13 to 14, together with the associated report from BDO LLP, the Council's internal auditors, at 7A on the agenda. So that's pages 15 to 38 in total. And I must say, before I hand over to Mr. Andre, who has kindly agreed to present the report, how helpful I found the way the information was presented. It's very, I think I'm a bit of a visual kinesthetic person, and the colours and the way that it was presented, the visual representation, I personally found very helpful. So thank you, and over to you, Mr. Andre.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. So I won't go into this in too much detail, as it was originally presented at the March PGA. It was generally approved. There were just a few minor amendments that we were asked to pick up on, and they were actually covered in the matters arisings, but I will just lay them up here quickly. So there was the one around management of Section 106 funds. So that's in the this year's audit plan 23-24. That was originally down to be completed in Q4, but it was asked to be brought forward, and we've got that in the plan to do now in Q2. So we're actually looking to complete that in the next couple of months, like we've done earlier. And then the other main amendments were for future years, so years 2 and 3, so that's 24, 25, 26. And again, that was one of them was around capital and project management. Again, just bringing it to earlier in the year. And the final one was around IT asset management, and really around the scope of it, and to include digital connectivity challenges. I'd also note that I know Chair obviously covered this when reading out the extra bit there, but this is a moving plan. So although 23-24, we can make progress on that. When it comes to 24, 25 and 25, 26, we reassess each year, look at the corporate risk register, liaise with CLT and ELT within the council, and so that it is reassessed each year, so it's not set in stone this, but as I say, it was approved apart from those few changes, so that's what I was going to cover really. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andre. Do any other officers want to comment? No? Fantastic, thank you. So the recommendation is found on page 13 of the report, and the recommendation is that the committee considers, comments and approves the following: Internal Audit Plan 2023-24 and Strategic Plan 2023-26 at 7A. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Members, would you like to make any comments on the report? Councillor Stamp.
Madam Chair, I've got a confession to make.
Go on.
I left home with my briefcase, my computer, my papers and all my questions. And so I think you're going to get off very lightly because I cannot remember them all. So I think I can only say it's noted, but if there's anything I want to bring up at a later meeting, would you allow me to? Because I have worked hard on it and I have got questions and I cannot recall them all. Sorry, Chairman, I forgot it. First time ever, it happens.
Absolutely, of course, Councillor Stamp. And again, I want to acknowledge, I should really, when we started the meeting, have acknowledged all the work that the previous members of PG&A have done. So thank you, previous members. And absolutely, Councillor Stamp, of course. And I acknowledge that this is very unlike you to do such a thing. So if no other members have any comments to make, may we agree that by assent? Yep, agreed. Marvellous. Thank you very much again, Mr. Andre. Thank you. So we now move to agenda item number 8, annual governance statement, and this is found on pages 39 to 44. So I will go to Mrs. Hughes, please, to present the report.
Thank you. Good evening, members. This report covers the best practice governance actions that we identified in the 21-22 annual governance statement and an update on progress against these to Q4. There were 4 outstanding actions for the 21-22 governance arrangements, and one of these, improve engagement with the residents and business survey, has been marked as complete in the Q4 updates. There are 3 open actions which will roll over into the 22-23 action plan, and they're set out in table 3 in the table in section 3.6 of your report. Those highlighted in grey in 3.6 of the report have previously been reported as complete to this committee. Officers have also drafted the 22-23 annual governance statement, which gives commentary on our governance arrangements and further actions to then follow into 23-24. This will come to the next committee meeting in July.
Thank you very much, Mrs Hughes. Thank you. Do any other officers want to comment at this point? No, thank you. So the recommendation is found on page 39 of the report, and that recommendation is that the committee reviews the annual governance statements table and updates below and challenges where necessary. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Spenceley. So I still find that slightly confusing. But, thank you. Excellent. Members, anyone wish to speak? Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Page 39, and it's actually to do with the LDP review. And can the officers tell us how far behind we have as we've had cancellations of the LDP? And can they give us a new timeline for the LDP going forward? Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs Hughes, can you help?
I think that's probably Mr Dodson.
Mr Dodson, I forgot you were hiding behind Mr Holmes there. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. No, I can't off the top of my head is the answer. The timetable has been updated following previous issues and changes. I'll have to reply in writing through the matters arising. Happy to do that through you, Chair.
Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor Stilts? Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Can that be to all members?
Thank you very much. Super. Any other members? Councillor Stamp.
Yeah.
Not getting off so lightly, am I?
Well, you are, because I did have other questions. Can I just actually ask what it says? Do you know, I do apologise because I had highlighted everything. When in another thing where it says Appendix 1, draw out and link. This is the old one, Chair. I don't know if Ms Hughes is going to tell me. I can't bring it up, but it says about the LDP review date, particularly in circumstances of change. Local and national planning policy has moved. LDP review via the Planning Policy Project Board. It says before that about the council's other policies and objectives is harder to be reflected because of our old policies. Now, I've interpreted that as saying that because the council has got older policies, is the new LDP going to struggle because they're not going to use the older policies, and is that dragging it back? I think Mr Dodson's known me well enough to know exactly what I'm asking there. So is there an issue that we are going to not be going forward because of our older policies? Are we changing our older policies? Are we getting rid of them? I think we need some clarity, because it concerns me that the inference there maybe is that our LDP is not fit for purpose, and we know we're at hang on.
We're champing at the mic.
He's ready to come back at me, Madam Chair, and I'm not quite there yet. Is that going to cause us an issue in the future? Because I really feel strongly that clarity on our LDP is essential now for this council going forward. Thank you.
Mr Dodson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think the issue is that there are a number of policies, because national planning policy has changed in the years since the plan was first written, which was 2014, obviously approved in 2017, that some of those policies are out of date. So those are being reviewed as a matter of course within the review that's going through. I think it also relates to some of the wider policies and some of the policy work and the evidence collection and the policy that comes out of that the LDP team themselves have been doing, and some of the consultant work that we had done to update that. So the plan isn't out of date as such, but where those policies are overtaken by national planning policy, then it reverts to national planning policy.
Can I come back and ask another question, please?
Of course.
Can I ask then that in future that anything, in like say for example the healer, which was released. In my view, it shouldn't have been released when it was, and all the furore that followed has created and caused this council a lot of issues. I'm sure you don't agree because you're a director, but I do think it's caused many, many issues. Can I then have your assurance that it will be dealt with in a proper process and it's a managed process, not by something or some media or ways of it being released under any delegated powers? I don't want to say too much, but you know exactly what I mean, that the information was released under delegated powers when this council didn't sit. And that was under strategy and resources and the leader and the previous chairman and the previous leader when that information was released. And that actually caused a lot of issues for members and the understanding of the residents. So I'm sure you're going to come back at me on that, but that is my understanding.
Mr Dodson.
Thank you. The healer was produced and published in the appropriate way, and the healer has to be developed early to show that there's a stock of land available that can meet the demand within the plan. So without having a supply of land, you can't possibly develop a plan to deliver the housing unless you do that, and then you select which sites from that selection of land through the issues and options and the site selection. So it was done appropriately. Nothing is released through emergency powers unless it is an emergency, and it may have been that the council didn't sit for a reason, which happened a number of times during that period. So the council will always, and officers will always, bring things to council as appropriate through the scheme of delegation, unless there is an exceptional reason not to, which there was in that instance. And I don't expect us to deviate from that approach in the future.
Sorry to hog it, members, but I think it's really important that as far as I'm concerned, yes, we do know what happened, we're aware of what happened, but with the delays that have ensued after that, it has created difficulties for this council. And I'm really seeking reassurance that nothing or anything within the power that won't allow that to happen again. Because the healer, yes, I understand about the basket. I was a leader when the healer was actually being put together. So I'm well aware of that, and I'm sure the new members are also aware of that. But the ensuing furore that happened because of that and now being reported in appeals and planning applications, I think it's really important that we have that timeline, which Councillor Stilts has requested, and we as a council stick to that. You don't have to come back because that's a statement. There wasn't a question in that, forgive me, but I would ask and urge that that is actually now followed. You can come back if you want. Cause
Would you like to come back, Mr Dodson?
I don't think there is much for me to add. I think my previous answer covered that, and the actions at the time in publishing and the emergency delegations that we used were appropriate, and we couldn't have foreseen the delays that came afterwards. But I take your point, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for letting me speak. A question to Mr Dodson. There was the planning policies, the out-of-date policies that have been identified through the LDP. My understanding is that we haven't developed any policies at this moment in time because those policies are going to be developed with officers and members' collaboration. Is there a listing of what policies are actually out of date that could be circulated so we know what those ones are when we're reviewing applications? Because to as you quite rightly say, to start to hang your coat on an out-of-date policy gives the misleading information when we're looking at planning applications.
Mr Dodson.
I can certainly ask the planning policy team to look at that and provide a list.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm afraid it won't be much comfort to members, but speaking as the only one present who remembers this, member present, obviously, Mr Holmes does, who remembers this from last time around when the document in question was called the SHLA, we were, as now, obliged to have a call for sites. Anyone could submit any site at all, didn't have to be their land, it could be anything that that tickled anyone's fancy, frankly, and they had to be published because it wasn't published online then, so access by the public wasn't quite so simple. But believe me, you're not alone with having angry residents, because I certainly was. It was almost pictures and lanterns time in one of my villages, where they believed they were going to get 200 houses all of a sudden out of nowhere. I'm afraid it's our job to explain what the document's for. There's nothing we can do about it. We're obliged to produce it as an authority. And frankly, it is what it is. I mean, if space for 100,000 houses comes forward, it does. And the good thing about that is it means we have a bit more choice, not that we have to build out all those houses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Stamp.
Can I reassure Councillor Thompson that, yes, the Slough was around and I did have a copy, just because I wasn't an elected member, and I would think other people sitting in this chamber maybe had an interest in the LDP before. And I do remember that document, and I think you'll find in one of my cupboards it is most probably still there from when it was done in 2014. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, can we, are we happy to agree this by assent, please? Yep, agreed. Super, thank you very much. So that brings us on to agenda item 9, review of corporate performance for Q4. So this can be found on pages 45 to 72. And Mrs. Hughes, it's back to you to present this again, please.
Yep, so this report covers Q4 corporate plan performance. So the data covers January to March 2023. 3.1 of your covering report, found on page 45 of your agenda pack, gives a summary view for each of the strategy themes. 3 outcomes have been marked as at risk within the place strategy, which are reduce impacts of waste disposal and pollution on the environment, deliver the housing the district needs, work with partners to maintain and improve district resilience to the effects of climate change. Broadly, the other outcomes were on track. Section 3.2 then gives further detail of specific indicators that have been marked at risk. So you'll see a table there and further details within the place strategy about the indicators that made up those outcomes. So that's the 5-year housing land supply statement updated and published, affordable homes delivered, and the percentage breakdown of recycling versus residual waste. There was also an indicator within prosperity marked at risk, which was tourism value to the district in both pounds and percentage. Appendix 1, found on pages 49 to 71 of your agenda pack, then gives the full KPI suite of the corporate plan performance for member information. It should be noted that a new corporate plan for NDC was adopted on the 22nd of February 2023, and a piece of work is currently in progress to revise the corporate performance reporting and map the revised corporate plan, which means that this is the last report you will see in this format, and an internal meeting will take place with PGA members next week to go through this. Members are invited to review and feedback on the corporate performance report and confirm assurance of effective performance management.
Thank you, Mrs. Hughes. I mean, there are obviously some causes for concern in this, and some people might look at the increase in fly tipping and suggest that that may have something to do with the new booking policy for our recycling centres, but I couldn't possibly comment. Very disappointed to see the satisfaction level with Riverside Park. However, I'm painfully aware we have not had a strategic management plan for Riverside Park for quite some years. So I'm hoping that, I know perhaps Mr. Holmes, you could reassure me that with the with Matt Holwood-White now being in place, that we will see some kind of strategic plan for Riverside Park.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Yes, we are now fully staffed within the team. You realise we did have some vacancies, and that has had quite a knock-on effect to being able to do some more strategic work. But we now have Mr. Holwood-White in position, and we also have his officer who looks after our countryside and coast in post as well. So that's on that work list.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, I'm ahead of myself. Did any other officers want to comment before I throw the field open to members? No? Okay, so before I throw the field open to members, the recommendation is that members review the information as set out in this report and Appendix 1 with priority given to the strategic outcome level performance, and that members confirm they are assured through this review that corporate performance is being managed effectively. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Please, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Members, I'm sure we have some comments. Councillor Spenceley, then Councillor Stilts, please.
Thank you, Chair. Like you, I'm a visual learner, so I love
this is lovely as well,
a technicolor
isn't it? Yeah,
dashboard.
really pleased with
isn't
this.
it beautiful?
Yeah.
And I'm going to focus on some good news. Page 59, the business satisfaction survey declined for 3 years, and then it nearly quadrupled in 22-23. So, to what do we attribute this increase, and does that herald a brave new world of our relationship with business?
Well, I have to, before I'm going to big up Ms Cable here, because I know a great deal of engagement has gone on with local businesses, and Ms Cable and other officers have spent a lot of time traipsing up and down high streets in Burnham and Malden, engaging with local businesses. So I would like to think that that has been a factor in that increased satisfaction, Councillor Spenceley. So thank you and well done, Ms Cable, and the rest of the team that did that very important piece of work with you. Thank you. Councillor Sills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have about 6 questions for you, one of which...
Strap in, officers.
There was 7, but you asked one of them. Page 51, and you touched on this. When you look at PL1 for the cost of fly tipping for non-hazardous, in Q2 we had a huge increase, and then in Q4 it went completely the other way. Why? This is a question for that one.
I think that's Mr Holmes, perhaps. I think that's your department, if you could possibly shed some light there.
I might refer to Mr Geller, but I really haven't got that detail. I can't explain. You're absolutely right, and as that quarter absolutely shifted. But obviously, fly tipping is an act where people dump rubbish, obviously, where they shouldn't be dumping it. Obviously, why they do it and when they do it and the frequency they do it, it's probably not going to be too much science behind that. So, unfortunately, the figures are what they are, and those fluctuations do happen. But I don't know if Mr Geller has any more information than that. No.
If you could, it would be nice. The other question...
let's Councillor Stilts run with it. Unless was it? I'll go to Councillor Burwood then, if you have something to.
I'm just gonna point out that at that time, the dump our tip didn't have its booking. So I think the comments earlier about maybe a rising fly tipping due to the booking system, that actually proves that's not quite right.
I stand corrected, Councillor Burwood. Thank you for that. So, Councillor Stilts.
Thank you. Also on page 51, if you look at, again, PL1, and it says total fly tip removals, and I think I have asked this question before, 2022-2023, excluding investigation and enforcement costs, which is £20,928. How much would it be if we had included those investigation and enforcement costs?
Mr Holmes, I'm looking expectantly at you.
Yes, and I'm thinking how we would record that and how we record that. Obviously, we have our officers, and yes, we don't strictly timesheet ourselves in terms of recording all of our hours against all of the activity. I'm happy to take that question away to see how easy or difficult that would be to align costs to it.
Thank you. Is this on the same point, Councillor Stilts? Stamp.
It is.
I'm totally
It
sorry.
is,
Both begin
Madam
with
Chair.
So Councillor Stamp and then Councillor Lagan on Councillor Stilts' point.
Yeah.
Well, you can hold on then, Councillor Lagan. Councillor Stamp.
Mr Holmes, we did actually ask for that information previously at one of the other meetings, I think maybe before we introduced the matters arising format. So I think it would be beneficial, because I can remember we had a spike with fly tipping before anything to do with the recycling centres changes, Mr Holmes, and we did actually actually asked, because your same question, the response you gave last time was you didn't have the figures and you will drill down to it, and I don't think it ever came back to the committee. So I think that would be beneficial, because it did happen.
Chairman, happy to revisit that. I will do that.
Super. Thank you. So, Councillor Stilts, do you wish to defer to Councillor Lagan, or do you wish to... You've got about 4 left, I think, have you?
Yeah, he's saying crack on, so
Crack on.
if he's happy.
Please do.
Page 62, which is to do with tourism, and this is a sort of off-the-wall question for tourism. And do you think that having the splash park closed during some of the hottest days will have an effect on our tourism numbers to the Prom Park? And what sort of loss have we incurred by not having that open?
Thank you, Chairman. I might ask Mr Butcher to comment on this. Mr Butcher has been asked a similar question in terms of how the splash park is operated, and I'm sure he'll be able to give you that level of information, but there is a reason why it wasn't open.
Mr Butcher, please. Mr Butcher has been silenced. The entire left-hand side of the room has been silenced. I think we might, yes, we just bear with us while we deal with the technical hitch. No, we appear to have complete mic failure on the left-hand side of the chamber, so bear with us while we shuffle about a little. In a circle for you, Mr Butcher.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Put simply, the historical information we have pre-COVID and running the splash park last year, we were able to get fairly accurate costs that indicate running previous to the school summer holidays. We actually tend to run at a loss apart from the half-term period. So when kids are off school, that's when we make a profit. And when kids aren't at school, we tend to get a handful of customers through, but it's not enough to cover our overheads of running the asset. So put simply, it's a commercial decision that we've taken with Places Leisure. We've looked at the opportunity to run for weekends, but unfortunately, with the asset, it's not just a simple switch you can switch off and on. It would need continual checking on a daily basis, and the pumps would run at 100% capacity, whether the asset's actually in use or not. So there's still overheads incurred, even though there's nobody on the splash pad. So I don't think that we've lost any money by not opening during the even though it's hot, by not opening this period. When the kids are on holidays, that's when we generally make the money.
I've got a
Thank
supplementary.
you.
I've got to come back on that
yes,
one.
Councillor Stilts.
Could you tell me, is that because we use a chlorination dosing system and not an ozonisation dosing system?
I can't tell you that. I'd need to go back. I mean, there is. We're looking to move, as you know, to have a UV filtration system and move away from chlorination. But that will be a bit of a phased approach, and we won't just stop chlorination just because the UV lights come on. So we're going to work with Places Leisure while we deliver that change.
Is it the same point? I shall indulge you, Councillor Lagan. If members of the committee are happy to let you go first.
That's your choice, Chair, really. So turn the
Well,
mic on or off.
this is a democracy. It's not a autocracy.
I have the time, and I'm a member of this committee, but I will give way to Councillor Lagan.
That's very kind. I'm not going to be long. I've only got a couple of points. I think that I don't think we've lost money is really not a sufficient answer, because I don't think it doesn't give me any surety. I think that we've got a major issue where we've gone for the fitting of the pumps, where we could have done that a while back. And if there was a problem with a contractor, then we should have maybe gone out and outsourced to a different contractor. So I think that whilst I agree with what you say, you can't have that thing running all the time because it's an expensive piece of kit. I think the council does need to actually scrutinise this whole process and look at the management of how this has been undertaken, because I had resident and a councillor come to me this evening complaining why it wasn't open on some of the hottest days. And I've said, obviously you can't, you need to have bums on seats to be able to do it. but I think we haven't handled it well. I think running the thing for 4 hours a day is not sufficient as a business model. It needs to be operated more. It hasn't been operated as per council's will when it was resolved at the end of March. So there's another thing that we need to scrutinise. And I think we need to learn an awful lot from this, because I think we've failed. And I think financially we could have leveraged this better. So the residents are suffering, people coming into the town. Fantasia was out there, sorry, Celtasia. There's a lot of bums on seats and people walking past going, why is it closed? So there's a lot of questions that I think need to be answered for a scrutiny process.
May I suggest then, Councillor Lagan, that you put in a request to overview and scrutiny regarding this item?
I certainly shall, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stilts.
Madam Chair, you can actually request that an item goes to scrutiny, because that's what this committee's for.
I can do. How would you wish to proceed? Because I'm very aware that, smacking my microphone, I apologise, IT. I'm very aware that Councillor Lagan is not a member of this committee, so I will now ask this committee whether you wish us to put this forward as an item for scrutiny, for overview and scrutiny. Can we have a murmur of assent, if so, please? Yeah. That will go forward as a scrutiny item from PG&A. Thank you, Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Lagan, I didn't know you were going to say that, but my point, Mr Butcher and Mr Holmes, was that when the funding was requested at SNR, I think the council made it quite clear that, some of us argued about the cost of it because all the money seemed to go to Malden. You've heard that argument many times, Mr Butcher, haven't you, from Burnham members? So we were concerned that we wanted to get the return. And I can remember Councillor Lagan and others arguing the fact when we said it isn't always for profit. And what you've just said to me, previous to Councillor Lagan's question in answer to Councillor Stilts, has slightly concerned me in that you are now, or the operator is going to operate it as a profit-making business rather than the facility which it was always meant to do, as far as I'm concerned, in the park. And we knew it was a loss leader before. We know it was because it kept coming to council, resurfacing and all sorts of things. And as Councillor Thompson's pointed out, she's been a member of this council for a long time, and I'm sure she remembers those things as well, when I remember it coming up in the last 4 years, because we debated about how much it was going to cost the council to go, similar to the pirate ship. Yeah, so it concerns me. So can I have clarification that, or confirmation that the splash park is going to open as agreed at council and not closed if it's deemed to be unprofitable at any times throughout a period of time? Sorry, Mr Butcher, I would have asked you the questions before, but...
Mr Butcher, or is that one for Mr Holmes?
Chairman, I think you raise an important point. Obviously, we're looking at our costs all of the time, and obviously looking at the business model for the splash park itself. And if you look at it on a commercial basis, then it doesn't make sense to run it full time when we don't have customers coming through, and that sort of time when you can say there's maximum use is during the school holidays, half terms, as we explained. Now, this half term was a particular issue which you've asked to be reviewed, and we'll do that obviously. But I think it's really for clarity for officers and for members. I think we do need to pick this point up again, perhaps through the Strategy and Resources Committee, because I think we can map out what the annual running costs of the splash park are. And if members decide ultimately, yes, the profit isn't the profit, the return, the loss is not the issue, then obviously we can factor that in, and we would absolutely do that. But I think our job as officers is to try to reduce our costs and maximise our income wherever possible. If in this case members feel strongly that it's a facility and the cost is not the driver in it, then we need to know that, and I'm sure we can do that. So I'd be keen to map out what it would cost, put that in front of members so we can be really clear, and then we can follow that guidance.
Sounds like a way forward. Councillor Stamp, do you wish to come back?
Yeah, thank you. Can I then make a proposal that it goes to Strategy and Resources from this committee based on everything you've said? Because I think it's quite unfair that poor Mr Butcher's got a bit of a trounce in, and it's not actually his fault. He's doing what he's paid to do. And I think it needs to go back to members for members to decide, because the mood may have changed. And I think that is really quite appropriate for everybody to, but you've got to make sure, and I'm sure you will, that those facts that figures are factored in and then also the goodwill or taxpayers' money, and if they see it as value for money, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Holmes and Mr Butcher.
Thank you. I'm happy to second that proposal if we are happy to agree that, members. Yep. Okay, I will go to Councillor Stilt and then Councillor Miller. Was
I'm still
was
at
that
it.
a raised hand, Councillor Miller? Or were you just stretching?
I'm still at it, but I'm letting Mr Butcher off the hook there.
Thank you, Mr Butcher, and thanks, Mr Holmes. You
Page
go, Councillor
63. So if you look at page 63, and we've got social media engagement with campaigns, and we've got this huge drop in it. I wonder why, and I actually wonder what the with campaigns actually means. So,
now, who would that be? Mr Dodson.
We do a number of social media campaigns, and it can relate to anything. It's often promoting what's happening in the park, hence why Q2 is busy. So I don't have a list to hand of what all the campaigns were. I can provide that if members would like to see that, but it is because the peak is because there's a peak of activity around Q2 in the summer when there's more promotional activity taking place.
That makes sense. Thank you. Any further questions? Oh, she's still going. I might let you, Councillor Lagan. Depends how many more questions Councillor Still
just two more. Just two more. Page 68. And if you look at page 68 and you look at C11, you notice that we have a huge drop in the number of youth awareness sessions delivered to schools. We went from 7 right down to 0. We're under our annual target of 4. I know it says there was no community safety officer in position to deliver the awareness this session, but could we have not done something to deliver something to schools?
I feel like I should be able to answer that as part of the youth strategy group, shouldn't I, really? But I'm going to hand over to Mr Dodson because I can't.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, we weren't under. There were 8 in Q1, 7 in Q2, and the annual target was 4.
Yeah, and then we went down on Q3 to 0 and Q4 to 0.
I think they're delivered at a certain time of year.
May I pipe up and say I think that would be because we don't deliver them during exam times.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm quite pleased that we have gone over our expected number. So,
Yeah.
Thank you. Crack on, Councillor Stilts.
Can I come back on that and say maybe in future if we had an explanation of that would be lovely.
Yeah.
The other one was 69, and this is a question I have asked many times, and Miss Green will know what I'm going to ask. C12, make every second count training. We're still not this year. If you look at Q1, 2, 3 and 4, we are still well below our target that we wanted to hit. Sorry, why?
I think you might have to approach the centre circle, Mrs Green, to respond to that. Is it Mrs Green, Miss Green? Miss Green.
Thank you, members. One of the reasons is that we do have a number of temporary staff within the team, so that will change the date when the training is being delivered. But certainly we're aiming for this year to have all of our staff fully trained by the end of the year. And just to clarify, members, this training is not customer services training. This is training to enable staff that when they're talking to the members of the public, if they identify that there's potentially some health and wellbeing activity that might benefit them, so such as smoking cessation, that we can signpost people. So it's not our core services, but it's kind of an extra service that we're able to do. But as I say, the majority of our staff, our permanent regular staff, are trained, and it's just that we have got a few temporary staff where we have got fixed term contracts where it's not always possible to fit them in with the training, but certainly that is our intention by the end of this year.
Thank you very much, Miss Green. Councillor Stamp.
Thank you. Could I ask Miss Green then, because it is quite confusing, because when I looked at that, I was a bit disappointed, because I know how hot you generally are for the staff training. And if it said somewhere that was for that reason, that it was additional and over and above, then we could, we would have had no reason to actually ask the question. So is there any way that it can be written on the forms, or if the charts are being changed or whatever, that some note is put there to say it is an over and above, it's the additional training? Because I can remember you talking about it and you went through great detail of what that entailed, because members raised caution about why they felt they were concerned that they weren't trained, or you weren't trained enough, as in not you but your staff. So I think that would be helpful. Do you not think that, Madam Chair?
Well, I was going to say we're doing ourselves a disservice
Well,
by
we
the
are
way
really.
the information is presented, and we don't want to do that. We want to shout about everything that we're doing well. So if we could find a way to present that in a way that, is more genuine and shows how effective we are being moving forward, that would be super. Councillor Stamp, is that okay?
That's great. I mean, they are doing it well. There needs to be said they're doing it well.
Well, this is what I'm saying. We need to shout about
criticise
what
them
we're doing
enough,
well.
so we should praise them enough.
Absolutely. Members, any more for any more? One more. Okay. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. The comment earlier on page 59 about economic investment and new jobs, business satisfaction, you're right, there is a massive increase in approval. It's good to acknowledge and appreciate the work that Ms Cable has been doing, and that is very tangible. The work Mr Butcher's been doing is very tangible. The work that many, many, many officers are putting in, as I said, we should celebrate. We don't do that enough.
We don't.
And the scrutiny and the questions that you're putting here is not, it's the questions of the systems.
Absolutely.
That's the thing.
Not
the people. And I've not served on this committee as a member, but I come because of the aspect of looking at our target, especially on this one. There's also on P8. We've got business satisfaction with Mouldy District Council services, and our target is 30%. Delivering of other things is incredibly low. I'm not satisfied. If in my professional role, if I had a suite of targets that were that low, I would consider that, hang on a second, we need to go back and we really need to revisit this. And I know we're having smart targets and different aspects. So are these, with the change in the format, are the targets that are being set still going to remain low? What's the data set to set the target? And how can we lift that target to a level where if we hit it, we celebrate euphorically to demonstrate that what we're trying to do within the corporate plan and all the hard work that underpins that is working. So that's my last question. Thank you.
Mrs Hughes has popped up on my screen, so I'm hoping that means you're going to answer Councillor Lagan's question.
Yeah, so I mentioned that there's an overhaul for the corporate performance reporting so that it maps to the new corporate plan, and as part of that we've re-looked at the KPIs, the benchmarking data and the target data. So that's part of what we'll be doing in the workshop with PGA members next week, and that will be a chance for the members to also feedback on where they're not happy potentially with some of the targets. So we'll be doing that work.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Stamp.
Thank you. Will then that come to whoever's on that workshop or working group or whatever, will then that come to PG&A to be agreed and formalised? Because certain people may have different ideas of targets and the information that goes with them, or the requirements for that target. So I think it's important, and then obviously it will go to full council, won't it, with the recommendation?
Can that come back?
So the whole committee is invited to the workshop next week, and then
20th.
That's where we'll then build the draft reporting from, and then the draft reporting will come to the committee for sign-off. But it doesn't go to council, it's the committee's report, so it's for the committee to sign it off.
Thank you. I do believe it's 10 o'clock on the 20th, is that right, next week? Yeah. I think so. Thank you. Members, may we move forward to a vote, and may we agree this the recommendation, which I've now forgotten. So would you like me to read out the recommendation again, or are we happy to agree it? Thank you very much, members. So I believe we are now at item 10, which is review of corporate risk for Q4. And you can find this on pages 73 to 86. Good evening, Councillor Lagan. Safe journey home. Back to Q4. So pages 73 to 86. And Mrs. Hughes, it's back to you again, please.
So this report again covers Q4, so January to March 2023, for the Corporate Risk Register. Appendix 1, which is found at pages 79 to 84 of your agenda pack, gives the full table of the Corporate Risk Register as at the end of March. Section 3.2 of your covering report shows you where the risks have changed direction since the last quarter. There are 3 changes this time, which are all risk decreases. So R4, which was failure to influence community safety partners to address key concerns of public concern and the perception of crime. The scoring has been reduced due to assurances that have been received by an internal audit. R9, which is failure to have a coordinated approach to supporting inward investment and maximising business rate growth. The risk has been reduced here because the investment prospectus website has now launched, which has reduced the risk likelihood. R29, failure to deliver services as a result of COVID-19. COVID cases have reduced nationally, and also COVID is now monitored as part of normal sickness and business as usual, so this one has been decreased. Thanks, members.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hughes. So would any other officers like to comment? No? Of course you can't, because your microphones don't work. So if you do wish to comment at any point, please wave at me and I'll ask you to pop down to the inner circle. Thank you. So the recommendations found on page 73 are little 1, that members review the corporate risk register in Appendix 1 and provide comment and feedback for consideration. We've got 2 little 1s. They're really testing me tonight on my chairman's prompt. So that'll be little 2, that members review progress of the corporate risk mitigating actions in Appendix 2 and provide comment and feedback for consideration. Little 3, that members are assured through this review that corporate risk is being managed effectively. And little 4, that members challenge risk where the committee feels that... I haven't got a sentence here. So that members challenge risk where the committee feels that there is a need to challenge that risk. So I so move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Members, I'm sure we have some questions. I'll go to Councillor Stilts, then Councillor Spenceley.
I was just, mine isn't a question. I was just going to say how pleased I am to see R1, failure to safeguard children and vulnerable adults has come out of the red.
Councillor Stilts, you know how important safeguarding is to me, so you know that I absolutely echo those sentiments. Thank you. Councillor Spenceley, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I found it very helpful that just the strategic risks are presented, because I've had so many spreadsheets from hell where every risk of any consequence has been listed in microscopic print right across a computer screen. So that's very refreshing. One might pander to the visual learners again and have an up or down arrow in that rating direction. We'd have 3 lovely little down arrows.
Yes, please.
We'd have a lot of level playing fields as well, but never mind. Secondly, because I'm new, I obviously don't know the background for the whole year's pattern of activity. So can I ask when the risk appetite of the council is considered and scored, and where we find that? And the third question is about mitigation, but I'll leave that second question first for answer, if you can help me with that one.
I believe that's you again, Mrs. Hughes.
Yeah, so there is a corporate risk policy that comes through PGA for adoption, so I can circulate that to members offline, and obviously that comments on corporate risk appetite, and it also gives parameters for what would score for the different levels. So the impact and the likelihood scores, it kind of gives examples. So I can send that round to members for background information. It is a public document, so we can also in future add it to the agenda pack as well. There's nothing to stop us doing that. The point about the up and down arrows, we can take that back too. That's a good idea.
Thank you.
I believe you had another question, did you?
Yes, well, first of all, to come back on the first one, that's really good to hear. And I think as the council enters a new cycle, most organisations would have innovation and opportunistic risk graded, perhaps moderate to high, because we want to really move things into a whole new area. And it would be good to see that kind of review and a fresh approach to that. Last question, don't want to take up too much time. No. The mitigation is one of the most important things about a risk register, because otherwise it's just a static record, isn't it? So,
it is, yeah.
So we've got the control strengths and we've got a commentary. And again, as a new member, the commentary, sometimes it's a bit retrospective. It kind of explains where we are. And sometimes it refers to previous commentaries, which obviously I've not got access to in this meeting. So perhaps an aspiration for me, if I can modestly suggest it, would be that the commentaries are a little bit more focused with milestones on how we intend to travel in the right direction in mitigating risk.
I agree, that would be useful. Councillor Spencer, Mrs. Hughes, is that something we can?
Yep, I can take that back. Again, I'll highlight that the on the table, the final column that says mitigating action, if there's a yes, there is a separate mitigating action table that we keep as an operating document. So there is further detail that we can supply for those as well.
Super, thank you very much. And the rest of my earlier sentence was that members challenge risk where the committee feels that the council's corporate goals may not be met. Thank you, committee clerk, for that. Any further questions, members? Yes, Councillor Stamp.
Page 77, I'm always good for being corrected. I dish it, so I take it back. So can I have comments on R15, failure to plan and deliver balanced budgets over the medium term? Obviously, we're still waiting on the LGA finance peer challenge. Do we have an indication when that's actually coming back? Because that's all I'm ever hearing, but I've not heard anything about it, and neither has any other member. And I thought my understanding was that we hadn't produced a balanced budget.
Who would respond to that, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Chair.
You failed.
Yes, the finance peer review, to take that first, that was reported back immediately at the end of the peer review, and a presentation was made to all members. Subsequently, due to the election and various activity, we were awaiting for that draft report, which we have now, and it's due to go to council on the 13th of July. In terms of the budget, the council is obliged to produce a balanced budget. The fact that that balance may include at times the use of reserves is an element of it, but that is an element of a balanced budget. I think that probably answers your previous point.
But Madam Chair, you know, Mr Dodson knows what the follow-up question is going to be. Our suggestion is, can that not be highlighted properly on the risks? Because you know how sad I am. I attended something this morning to do with this very subject about how councils are borrowing from reserves to balance the budget. District councils are more susceptible at the moment, and so are county councils compared to the rest of the other council sector. And I found it quite interesting that obviously I'm sure all members, and forgive me if I'm telling you how to suck eggs, that it's our money and we're borrowing it and we're putting it back or whatever. And I welcome. You've never been introduced. I know you from the interview process, and I'd seriously like to welcome you. I think you're an excellent candidate, and I think you'll do this council proud. So forgive me if you feel as though I'm putting you in a spot, but I will try not to do that. but can that be reported, and can we have more detail about borrowing our own money? And so I think the Finance Working Group and members need to understand what that actually means. Because once it's spent, and you're going to pay it back, and it's all taxpayers' money. And I think it's really important that we get a better understanding of the finances of this council, because we all know the financial pressures from central government, what is going to affect this council. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah.
Could I introduce?
I feel terrible now because I feel Councillor Stamp has done my job for me, and in my defence, I'd say Mr. Dodson's in the way. But Mr. Dodson, if you would please formally introduce our new Section 151 officer, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce Naomi Lucas, who is our interim Chief Finance Officer, and has joined us. You've been with us 2 weeks now? Yeah. And he's settling in fantastically. In terms of the answer, and Naomi, you might want to add some detail around this. Obviously, we have the medium-term financial strategy and the budget setting process, which comes through in February, as well as the finance peer review. The recommendations from that will come through in July, including the strategic savings plan that's highlighted here, and a review of some of the assumptions around the medium-term financial strategy and some of the changes that are coming through from the better than expected outturn that we had at the end of the last financial year and was shared with members. Obviously, this risk needs to be read in conjunction with that information, and that's what it refers to. But we can look at that and the detail of it to make sure it's very clear to members the challenges within that. And for the record, it is at that level because of the major challenges of single year finance settlements and the increases in inflation and the challenges that we have in years 2024, 25 and 25, 26. But Naomi, did you want to, sorry, Miss Lucas, did you want to add anything to that?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for your welcome. I think you've really covered off the key points, but I would just concur that we can obviously expand slightly on the corporate risk, just to make clear some of the points that you've raised. The risk is obviously ragged as high anyway, but I think just some of those mitigating actions are being taken, and the situation could be expanded on slightly within the risk register. So take that on board. Thank you.
Thank you. And again?
Yeah, thank you, because the new members are going to get sick of me saying it, so I'm not going to keep saying new members, but I think all information needs to be shared with everybody about those financial risks, because people who haven't sat and attended the meetings, I think they do need to know when they see red on here what that most probably means as a financial terms. I mean, we all know that well, I think, I could be wrong, and Ms Lucas, you can easily correct me. Like I said, I don't mind, I give it and I can take it. But we could be suffering for the new homes bonus, can't we, if we don't get that this year, because that contributes to us getting the money coming into the council, doesn't it? And also the business rate reliefs, that could possibly stop as well. We don't exactly know, so it's always a challenge going forward. And I think it's really important that everybody does understand those sort of risks. And this committee, as far as I'm concerned, is the committee that raises the risks, or should raise the risks, to the council. I'm not saying the officers don't, so please don't anybody read into it and think I'm being a nasty pasty. I'm not. I'm just really trying to highlight the issues that could come forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. Members, any further questions? If not, may we agree that by assent? Fantastic. Thank you. Did you have a question, Councillor Stilts?
Sorry, Madam Chair, but because I've sort of a bit discombobulated because I haven't got on my notes.
Sixes and sevens,
yeah, I
have.
But no, I'll wait until it comes back again. The risks aren't going to go away, I don't think. Thank you.
No, I think sadly you're probably right. Okay, thank you, members. Moving forward, item 11, which is the review of health and safety for Q4, which you can find on pages 87 to 98. So I defer to Mr. Holmes, please, to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to hand him shortly to Mr Paul Baccarini, who's our new Health and Safety Officer. Members will recall an additional budget was provided to allow our full-time Health and Safety Officer to join the manager to join the Council. Mr Baccarini joined the Council back in January this year. So this was his first report to you members this evening. It follows a similar format to you've seen before, and you'll note there's a number of extra items of detail that have been included in the report. But I'll introduce Mr Baccarini now, and he'll guide you through the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Baccarini. Welcome, and I hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr Holmes. Yes, I present to members the report for Quarter 4, summarising the Council's health and safety performance for this period. Section 3.1, I haven't got the page of that. It's showing as my copy as 113, page 113. Section 3.1 summarises accidents and incident reports, near-miss reports, and reports of unacceptable behaviour. Of the accidents and incidents, events where there's been injury or asset damage, one was notifiable to the Health and Safety Executive. The injury occurred whilst a member of staff was manual handling. The officer has since fully recovered. Of the near misses, none draw any particular remarks from myself. Of the reports of unacceptable behaviour, we continue to receive a mixture of those that are experienced by our staff whilst on the telephone and also in person. Whilst any incident of unacceptable behaviour can be distressing for staff, we have chosen here to highlight those experienced in person, and this is because of their potential for escalation. We will continue to monitor this moving forward and continue to use our existing mitigations. Moving on to section 3.3 and 3.12, which highlights some of the health and safety actions during this period. It is of note that a new corporate health and safety manager is in post, and that the initial tasks conducted ranged from making fundamental changes to risk assessment matrices and forms. For example, we now consider asset damage and environmental damage in our operational assessment. Changes to accident and incident and near-miss reporting, and this is with a mind in future to allow better tracking of data. And developing of a new health and safety training matrix in order to track competency. Such work has been conducted alongside more routine and ongoing tasks, including the closeout of actions from previous inspections and assessments, such as for fire and Legionella risk. Moving forward, our priorities outlined in section 3.13. These will be to implement a new unacceptable behaviour policy, to draft policies for loan working and contractor control, and to initiate a refreshed health and safety and managers meeting on a routine basis. My final point, not evident in the report, and it's to remind members that whilst some of the detail has been included here, there is no suggestion of a rise in the number of negative lagging health and safety indicators. In fact, it is believed that the rise in the profile of health and safety over the last year or two has increased awareness and potentially health and safety reporting from staff. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much for that, and I must say I'm reassured because I know health and safety has been a major issue in the past, particularly in the parks team, and that was I think that was looked at by overview and scrutiny. So it's very reassuring to have you in post, Mr. Baccarini. Is that how you pronounce your name? Mr. Baccarini.
Yes,
Super, thank you. So the recommendations are that members consider the accident and incident statistics, and that members consider progress with all health and safety actions. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Members, comments please, Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Page 88. Knowing little about chemicals and first aid as I do, can you tell me you have an incident using chemical cleaner in the council offices and involving the use of the hot water tap? What chemical caused burns to the eyes that needed eye wash to be used? Why was the PPE not being used? So were they given safety glasses? Was the MSD actually looked at for the chemical that was used? And also, what has hot water got to do with the chemical incident, or is this two separate incidents? As surely hot water was not mixed with the chemical or applied to the eyes.
Mr. Baccarini, can you shed any light?
Yes, if I may, Chair. The particular incident you're referring to, the chemical that was being used, I think it's been referred to as a chemical, I believe was a mild detergent, so almost like a household detergent. The eye wash, there was no injury, but the eye wash was used as a precaution, which is correct, because obviously you can't consult an MSDS straight away. I believe in this case the labelling was consulted and it was shown to be not of particular hazard. So for this particular task, which is a cleaning task, like a domestic cleaning task, there was no PPE identified. With regards to the hot water, it was involved. I understand that the member of staff was holding the detergent bottle when they turned on the tap, and apparently so that the hot water caused them to startle, and I presume if they sort of clenched their fist, it sort of squeezed the bottle, as I understand it, into their eyes.
Thank you.
I was going to
Mr.
say thank you
Baccarini.
very much. That was very clear.
That was very illuminating indeed, and I've now got this vision of that. But we have descended slightly into jargon, members. Could someone clarify what MSDS is for us, please?
Yeah,
Councillor
it's a
Sills.
material safety data sheet.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Stone.
Mine's just a question really on 3.2.2. Where do members get to report when they're abused by the telephone or by email by residents?
A very valid question, Councillor Stamp. I'm not sure if that's one for you, Mr. Baccarini, or if that's one for a director. Which director would like?
I think I'll need to reflect on that. Obviously, unacceptable behaviour is unacceptable regardless of who is receiving that. Obviously, as employers, we have a duty of care to our staff, but equally well, there is a duty with members as well. I'd like to just reflect on that, and perhaps I can give a written answer to that.
Okay.
I maybe said in a flippant way, but it is,
No,
and it is getting more and more aggressive. If you're not doing what somebody may want you to do, and what I'm finding, I'm sure the members are, they want it done. Residents seem to want it done yesterday, and we all know council processes. You more than ever, anybody else, Mr. Holmes, because you get the majority of them when they come to me. I send them to you, but it's important that we have got some mechanism, or that we can actually have somewhere or go to somebody to speak to, because I think the level of abuse is mounting. Thank you.
I think as Burnham councillors, particularly on one particular issue, Councillor Stamp, we've both experienced a level of that. So, yeah, if you could reflect on that, Mr. Holmes, that would be great. Councillor Stilts.
Thank you. Just seen on page 93, and we don't have much information on this one, but on August 2022, whilst alighting the back of the works vehicle, steps collapsed, a member of staff fell to the ground, injuring his ankle and his back. It doesn't look like that was a ride or reportable, but I would query that. How often do we check the steps on the back of the vehicle? Do we have a plan for checking things like that, so that it doesn't happen again?
Who would like to take that? Yes, please, Mr. Baccarini.
Yes, in this particular case, I believe it wasn't read or reportable. It predates my starting at the authority, but the injury sustained wasn't significant, and the time off of work wasn't over 7 days. The vehicles are inspected weekly. A review, an accident investigation reviewed the checks on that check sheet. So each point it reviewed that, and the access steps was not part of the check. So as a result of that incident, it's now been added onto the weekly check sheet. So a staff member will have to check the steps, and they will have to say if they're in good enough condition.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's great. Any further questions on this agenda item? No. Members, may we agree that by assent, please? Agreed. Thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item 12, which is the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which I know Ms. Cable has been working very hard on. So I'm looking forward to hearing your report back when you've made your way to the inner circle with the working microphones.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. This report is to update the committee on the delivery of Malden District's UK Shared Prosperity Fund. There's a supporting document on pages 103 to 110 of your report pack. For the benefit of newly elected members, I'll just give a brief overview of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and apologies to those re-elected members who have heard this several times, but background information is important. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund, referred to as UK SPF, is part of the UK Government's Levelling Up agenda and will provide £2.6 billion of new funding for local investment by March 2025. All areas of the UK have received an allocation via a funding formula rather than competitive bid, meaning it is a guaranteed investment. Malden District Council's allocation was confirmed in April last year as £1 million to be spent by March 2025. The funding is tapered as per the issued guidance, with agreement for 6% of the revenue to be used for management and administration. A breakdown of the funding, the minimum capital and maximum revenue expenditure is available in 3.2 of the report. As approved by Strategy and Resources Committee on the 14th of July 2022, delegated authority was given to the corporate leadership team for the development and submission of the authority's investment plan. This investment plan was developed through a review of existing strategies and consultation with the nominated local partnership group, One Malden District. Lead local authorities were expected to receive approval of their submissions in October 2022. However, this was delayed until December through no fault of their own, with the first funding payments made in January 23. Despite these delays, progress has been made to ensure that authority defrays its allocation. The required 6-monthly return confirmed expenditure of £8,853.20 up to March 2023. A request has been submitted to the Department of Levelling Up Homes and Communities to reprofile the remaining £50,165.80 underspend from 22-23, acknowledging that government delays has meant a delay to delivery. Work continues to deliver at pace to deliver the approved investment plan for the benefit of the entire district, and a further report will be provided to committee in September 2023. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. So the recommendation, members, is that the committee acknowledges the update provided on the Malden District UK Shared Prosperity Fund allocation and continues to monitor the delivery. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Oh, Councillor Shaughnessy. Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions for Ms Cable? Councillor Stilts.
I would like to congratulate Miss Cable on the amount of work that was put into this.
Absolutely.
I am one of those members that have seen this several times. I will ask Miss Cable, on page 109, the Malden District Youth Council, you've got that as getting in the green for getting money on 24-25. I think at one meeting I was at, we queried that. Is that still an ongoing council? Do we still have the Youth Council for Malden District?
Thank you, Councillor Stilts. So this is to enable projects for the development of that group. So the Youth Council is being formed. It's been undertaken through the thematic specialist for communities, and I can ask for an update to be provided as a follow-up to this meeting.
That would be great. Thank you. Councillor Stan.
Can I come back on that one? I'm sure many of you know that with my different hat on, I'm very keen to get provision for SEND children. They're vastly underrated here in this district. We have hardly anything. And I'm doing something for the first time I've ever done in my life, and I'm going for a march on Downing Street shortly with a placard. I don't know what the placard's going to say because somebody's doing it for me. But I feel so strongly about them not being represented out here. And Mr Dodson's going to grin thinking what's going to be on my placard, no doubt. And please don't send me what you think should be on it. Going back to what Councillor Stilts has actually just said, are you able to engage? Because I've had many complaints about SEND provision not being available in the Dengie. I admit they've got some in Malden when they do their groups for the youth groups and everything, but there is nothing that comes out where we are, and not everybody has the option to come to Malden. You only have to look at the regular bus services that's provided. I think I mentioned I went to the Dengie 100 bus users group the other day, and there was one lady there, it took her 5 hours to get back from Chelmsford because a bus broke down. They had another one that didn't arrive. And that's for elderly residents. And students and children cannot attend any of these facilities that should be readily available and should, in my view, move around the district, especially coming out as far as Bradwell. There's quite a few kids that live in Bradwell with special needs, and I know because I support them with locality funding from Essex County Council, and I also know the register of them all. So my question is there anything that you are doing or this council is doing, are you looking in to do? Because it's a serious issue, and kiddies are being what's the word? The future, the researches that have been done, we know it's going to be an ever increasing issue. So thank you. I don't know if you can but I hope the directors have listened to that, and I know on the LDP I've been banging the drum and hopefully trying to get some school provision or nursery provision coming out here with all these thousands of houses that we're getting. So thank you. It might be a multiple answer, not just Miss Cable, one of the directors may. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Ms Cable, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. As Councillor Stamp will be aware, but for the benefit of others, obviously, as the education send provision is provided by Essex County Council as the Education Authority. I know, Councillor Stamp, you'll be aware of that. Specifically within the UK Shared Prosperity Fund delivery, there are rural elements of that we will be delivering, which is in order for residents to be able to access more services, etc. However, later this year, we will have the Rural England Prosperity Fund coming forward, which will be an open grant programme whereby community groups can bid for funding to deliver capital projects. So that could be, for example, and not specifically saying this would be eligible, but an organisation wishing to purchase a lease on a property to be able to undertake a provision, etc., and offer a service. That's currently lacking in the area. And there's also which it launched today actually, the Malden District Future Transport Strategy, which I would encourage all members and all residents to respond to, because that really will assist us with the future, well, not us, sorry, the Highways Authority with the future planning of transport needs for residents. I've been a resident of Malden for a very long time, and I'm hyper conscious of the issues that are experienced, not just in Malden, but the wider rural areas as well.
Can I come back before Councillor Stilts comes in? So the answer is no. There's been no provision. We've got no provisions for send children in anything that's happening at the council at the moment. Is that correct? And I've already filled my transport strategy in.
Specifically within your UK Shared Prosperity Fund, obviously all of the opportunities that are available, we have a public sector equality duty, so people are able to access any of the projects that are being delivered. But around the Rural England Prosperity Fund, that open call for grants will be available. But in terms of particular send provision, that hasn't been identified, but it doesn't mean it won't support the needs of everybody in the district, or at least work towards supporting the needs of people in the district. So while send provision hasn't been identified, as we have limited sway over that due to the fact that we're not the Education Authority, I would hope that there are projects coming forward through the open grant call and the projects that we deliver that are accessible to people who require additional needs.
Thank you. I wonder if that's something for the Youth Strategy Group, Councillor Stamp, as well.
Well, I didn't really want to say anything about that because they have been said that, and the very capable lady who was chair of that when I attended those meetings, that money was available, but it didn't progress because of some difficulties. Now, I never followed that up because I didn't attend those meetings. Councillor Fleming was the chair, I think, of those meetings, or is the chair of those meetings. And what I've heard is that what I am hearing quite strongly is all this group of mums and dads want is it could be a porter cabin, not a porter cabin, one of those, is it a porter cabin? One of those things, or thingy, I don't know. To go static, that's it. somewhere like the Ormiston Rivers Academy, and they would kit it out because there is funding, but nobody seems to, there's no joined up writing for this. There's no joining of the dots. And they have raised it with Miss Green, not that Miss Green, the Miss Green, the youth Miss Green, Lauren, and nothing has happened. So I don't know, and I'm sorry to put it on you, but I know how hardworking and you achieve things. I'm not saying others don't, but if there's anything you can do, we would be really grateful because they are underrepresented in this area. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Perhaps that's something we can discuss as part of the youth strategy. We've got lots of questions coming up now, so I'm going to go to Councillor Spencer first, then Councillor Stilts, and then Councillor Shaughnessy.
Thank you, Chair. In support of Councillor Stamp, when Ofsted do a send area inspection, my understanding is that they look at a whole range of agencies, not just education, but health, local government. So when I worked for a clinical commissioning group in Basildon and Brentwood, it impacted us significantly because we were expected to take our share of the responsibility. So I think hermetically sealing send into education or county is tempting but risky when Ofsted certainly take a much wider view of it.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. A good point, well made there. Actually, I'm going to give Councillor Shaughnessy a go because you haven't spoken yet, and then I'm going to come to you, Councillor Stilts. Councillor Shaughnessy, please.
Thank you, Chair. As most people know, I don't usually speak much at meetings, but I too take an awful lot in, I can assure you. And I do know that there is a room that is kitted out very well, and it's on at the bottom of Market Hill on Fullbridge, and it's a room in the on the moat floor of that Fullbridge building. This room is there. The moat offices aren't open at the moment, to everyone's frustration, but there is a room there that they were very proud to show off, and several councillors a few years ago were shown this room, and you know it was going to be the be all and end all for children to chill out with their parents. So I do know there is a room there at the very least. There's sort of no other sort of facilities laid on, but you can't do anything with any child on any level without a premises.
For sure.
And there's a room there. Thank you, Chair.
very much for that, Councillor Shaughnessy. It's not the dingy, but thank you for letting us know that. That's helpful information to have. Thank you for sharing that. Councillor Stilts.
Yes, I was going to actually ask a question. It will go to Mr Dobson rather than Miss Cable. We have an S106 fund, and in that S106 fund there is quite a bit of money for youth services. I can't remember how much, but I'm sure you can, Mr Dobson. I'm wondering if we could use some of that S106 fund to actually fund what Councillor Stamp is asking for. And that might actually bring this levelling up for what Leander, Miss Cable was saying, forward a bit, so it might free up something.
Mr Dodson.
Thank you, Chair. We do seem to be focusing on send, which is fine, but that wasn't what the report was directly about.
But a bit. I think I'll bring us back
in terms of Section 106 funding, the Section 106 funding and the youth funding, it's generally ring fenced to activity that's identified within the policy that sets it up. We can review that, but I know that a number of times we have reviewed Section 106 funding and it is ring fenced to the activity to which it's prescribed for. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'll just come back to say we haven't spent any of the one for youth. I think there's something like 100 and something, more than 100 and something thousand in that fund. Is it something we could look at, please?
Yes, please. Sorry,
As I said, we can review it. We will review it. It's likely to be ring fenced, but of course we can check.
Thank you. We have digressed significantly, members. So I've indulged you. It's because it's an important issue, and I don't wish to, to make it anything else. So, members, any further questions on Ms. Cable's excellent piece of work here? In which case, may we agree by assent to accept the recommendations? Super. Thank you very much. Which brings us on to item 13, which is to appoint 2 member representatives to support the work on the process improvement framework. So, Mrs. Hughes, it's over to you again, please.
Yep, so following adoption of a process improvement framework in 2021, it was agreed that 2 members of PGA and ONS committee would act as member champions to support the work. Members have been circulated an email that outlines further detail on what the role entails earlier this week, and we're seeking 2 member nominations.
Okay, thank you. So nominations for that group. It doesn't have to be the chair and vice chair, Mrs. Hughes, does it? Oh, you've gone.
No rules. It can be anybody from the committee.
Does anybody particularly like to put themselves forward for that role? Deafening silence. Nobody's keen on process improvement. Are you happy then, along with me, Councillor Thompson, to be part of that?
I was a systems analyst in the former life.
That's
so
marvellous. So I think that's probably plays to your strengths, not mine, unfortunately. But at least we'll have one person who knows what they're doing. So that would be myself and Councillor Mrs. Thompson will be those representatives. Please, excellent. So I think that takes us to item 14. Which is appointment of representatives to outside bodies and working groups, and that I defer to you, Mr. Dodson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a fairly straightforward report. Members will have been through the process, those new members as well, of the appointments to outside bodies and working groups within Council last week. There are a number of outside bodies that do report and are appointed directly from this committee, and that's the Malden Citizens Advice Bureau Liaison Committee, Malden Museum in the Park Liaison Committee, and the Parish Clerks Forum. There's also a working group, which is the Performance Governance and Audit Working Group, for which members need to be appointed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dodson. So if we take them in order, the Malden Citizens Advice Bureau Liaison, I know Councillor Shaughnessy, you've expressed an interest in that particular committee. Would anyone else interested in that committee? Citizens Advice. Yes, please, Councillor Spenceley, thank you. So I believe I need one more. Thank you, Councillor Miller. Excellent. So we have representatives from across the board. Thank you. So then, did you get those, committee clerk?
Yes, Chairman.
Super. Thank you. So the museum in the park, 2 members for the liaison committee. I'm looking at Councillor Stilts. No. No. Any new councillors interested in the museum? We need somebody. Oh, Councillor Shaughnessy, thank you so much. Anybody else with an interest in history? I can tell you there is a super exciting exhibition coming up on sustainability, which is going to be very, very good. So very exciting. Nobody? I do not have the capacity to take that on. What do we do in these circumstances, Mr. Dodson? Can we defer? Super. Thank you, Councillor Stamp, for pointing that out. We'll defer that one then. So again, we may, if we find 2 people that are very keen, Councillor Shaughnessy, I'm guessing you might be smacking my microphone again. Sorry, IT. That you might. Brilliant. Super, thank you. Parish Clerks Forum, that has to be the chair with vice chair substituting, so thank you for that. And we need 5 members for the working group. Oh yes, Councillor Burbage, Councillor Spenceley, Councillor Thompson. I guess I should be on it, really. So we need one more. If nobody here is it. Oh yes, Councillor Shaughnessy. I think that's it, isn't it, Committee Clerk? I'm able to count up to 5. Hurrah.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Excellent, thank you. So moving forward, I've got all ahead of myself now. Lovely. Oh, so now we have any other items of business that the chairman of the committee decides are urgent. I have none, but I know Councillor Stamp had any other business, so if I could take that now, please.
Thank you. I'd like to raise a question about a possible risk. I should have raised it at the appropriate time. I wondered if the directors could help or reassure the committee that our website is up to the standards that the LGA recommends. It came to my attention that some funding was requested to bring in an external or additional officer to be able to make sure that our website was up to standard and up to scratch. So I haven't seen it in any papers. I've not seen it come to any committee. And I just wondered if they can assure us that we are okay and that we're not at risk for anything that, any fines because it's not working to current standards. I know when I had a meeting with Councillor Mays, and I think Councillor Thompson didn't attend, the one about the, I've forgotten what it's on now, where we help with the computer people.
Are you talking specifically about accessibility?
Yeah, no,
issues
I'm not talking
or
about
general.
that. That's it. Thank you.
I do attend. I missed one.
Yeah, you missed that. That was the one, and it was the lovely gentleman. I'm dreadful at names. Grant, who actually mentioned about websites,
Holly.
and I can remember going to a presentation in Moot Hall, which this council put on, I think, 18 months ago. And I actually asked about the website, and I was told at the time it would cost so much money and that the council wasn't planning to do anything with it. Because it's very hard to access information, isn't it? You know, if you put in the search engine,
yeah. Tell me about it. I'm sorry to cut you, but I am so frustrated with this website that my frustration is boiling over, Councillor Stamp. And I was part of a working group where we did share our concerns, and then nothing more happened. But Mrs. Hughes has popped up on my screen, so I'm hoping that she will be able to.
But,
oh, sorry. No, yeah. Do go on.
So I raised it at that meeting, and it was Grant who turned around and said that it would cost the council obviously a lot of money. Nothing has happened since, so it does slightly concern me. But it's easier, Madam Chair and members, if you actually put your question in Google, it takes you to the Malden website. If you put it in the Malden search engine, you've got no chance of finding any document whatsoever.
None.
So is the council at risk? Has the council got any plans to be able to do that? I know, Richard Holmes, you're chomping to actually come back to me.
Would you like to take that?
Chairman, yes, there is an officer working group that is actually looking at the website, and in fact I attended one of their meetings only last week where they're actually looking at the connectivity and the links that go through there. So there is a programme to upgrade the website. It's going to take some time for those improvements to roll through. But what I could do for members is give you a sort of a written statement really of the work and give you a confirmation of that. But be assured that the website, if you're concerned about access and safety, it's operating correctly. We recognise that it could be better, and officers are working in the background to improve that. But let me get you a statement really that just gives you that level of reassurance. I think Ms. Hughes would probably also want to
that
add
would
as
be
well.
very helpful, because I do feel like we've been screaming into a void about that. Mrs. Hughes, would you like to come back on that? Oh, she's gone.
I was just going to give more detail that's
been
Super. Through the process improvement programme, but I think it would be better if we gave some detail offline about some of the areas that we've been looking at and what's been going on. And just to reassure you that we have had an accessibility audit recently.
Brilliant.
And then we've picked up on all the actions that came out of the accessibility audit. And so we are fairly compliant across our website. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's That is somewhat reassuring. So, one more, Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, well, it is important. I
is,
think it's really important that Ms Hughes said that it will be reported back. Can we make sure everything's reported back to the committee so all members know, and then it could be shared with other members of our groups? I was always a great one when I was sitting in there. We have to share information. It's not just given to one person and nobody else. So can we make sure everything is shared? Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Okay, that moves us on to item 16, exclusion of the public and press. So, to resolve that under section 100A bracket 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A to the Act, and that this satisfies the public interest test. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Okay, so if I can have confirmation when the live stream is